are excused.
Item 3, approval of minutes from July 13th. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any additions, corrections?
Yes, I do.
Sharon?
Yeah, just a couple things that I wanted to add in here. On page 4, on the second paragraph where I was making some comments, maybe the third line down, I had talked about there could be a more creative use of the site than driving. I had thought I had been saying than driving through the middle of the housing straight back to the hotel.
Okay.
That was, and then on page 5, under new business, the third paragraph, I wanted to add that I also asked if there had been any contact or comments made by the American Inn about the signs that were facing them.
Okay.
And they said there were none.
Any other further corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, minutes are approved. Appearances, is there anyone here who wishes to appear on an item that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll close the appearance section, move to unfinished business. Public hearing on request by Terry Pope, Mama Bear's Child Care, and Turner Harshaw, property owner, for approval of a zoning permit for a new use to operate a 30-child daycare facility with outdoor play area at 148 and 152 Owen Road. Welcome. You want to come up and... Terry, did you want to give us any updates or anything new?
I feel like we've been
Yeah, there's lots going on. The pre-licensing inspection just took place at the beginning of last week. I did pass that, so that's fantastic. Things are definitely rolling. The firewalls are in their finishing stages. The pull-down fire alarm system, the phone line to that will be installed as of tomorrow.
The system is in, but the phone line isn't hooked up, but it will be tomorrow.
Yes, I didn't know Charter had modem and it needed to be analog, so there were no, mistakes that way. So that'll be taking place tomorrow. Then we can invite Chief Sullivan in to do his final inspection, and that should get his seal of approval then too. Pending all of those details and your support and approval, I will be able to submit my application then to actually obtain the license.
Great. Thank you. Anything else you want to share?
I think we're on schedule. We've done everything. The outdoor area. I think we are putting up the fence that was recommended by the city.
Yes, we're going to go ahead and go with the vinyl white fencing, Colorado vinyl white fencing, to match what Village Lanes has got going on. So it'll definitely be, appealing to the eyes and still be able to keep the kids in safely.
Sounds good.
Those are some of the questions you had last time. We tried to answer all of your questions or your suggestions.
I'm going to close the public hearing section then and move on to B, so if you want to just stay there in case there's any questions from the commission members, that'd be great. So close the public hearing on the request and move to 5B, which is consideration of action on the request. Sonia?
This was last reviewed in a pre-hearing conference on July 13th, and the staff report recommendation is listed for approval, and there are 7 conditions. 1, general for building code requirements. Number 2 is about fire code requirements, and then specifically including that the alleyway must be kept clear to allow for fire safety access. So that was discussed at the pre-hearing conference about possibly chaining it off. Talked with the fire chief, and we need to keep that open. 3 is regarding future sign permits. Number 4 was that, as proposed, the trash enclosure shall be repaired no later than October 31st of this year.
Yeah. We have a drawing where it's going.
Okay, and number 5 was regarding the base material. If you're putting in the sand and mulch, that we make sure that that's contained so it doesn't wash out and so that it maintains a neat appearance. Number 6 was the fence as proposed is what is required and no temporary fence material such as snow fencing. And then number 7 was a comment from the commission last time about the distance between the play equipment and adjacent structures such as the retaining wall.
Oh,
Thank you. Commission members, any comments or? Mr. Humbert?
I believe I read you're going to contain the play area surfacing the sand and the mulch with 6x6 timbers, is that right?
On here,
It says it.
exists 8x8 wood retaining
Well,
wall.
that's the existing wall behind
Oh, that's the
it.
existing wall.
Which
So
one?
I'm sorry, it's
How about in
a,
front of it. I
It's
thought
a
it-
6x6
it's a
board.
6x6 board.
That's what I thought I read in your application.
Yep.
Will those be pinned to the asphalt then?
You know what? I'm not sure how they're going to be secured on there, but I know that they're going to make.
I'm asking that because if you don't pin them to the asphalt, then the water sitting behind them is just going to start moving around.
And make it all wash.
And
They
the
they will be
same-
secured. I'm just not
Yes.
positive how Bill's gonna do that.
Generally, they just, like bumper blocks, they'll just drive a
Yeah.
stake or a re-rod through it so they're pinned that way.
Correct.
Basically, there's a hole in there and you
Similar to
drive it
where
right
they
through.
do the cement parking.
Exactly.
Okay.
But if they're not secured somehow, then it'll be an issue.
Yep, I know, and we talked about that was the concern of it
So I
leaking,
just-
and they guaranteed whatever work they were going to be doing was
I
going
was
to.
aware of that.
Okay, so I just recommend we include that in the condition. It's just if you're using 6x6s that they're pinned to the asphalt.
Pinned. Okay, sounds
Um,
good.
And we should make a record of the drawing we got today.
Yes.
So that it's part of this approval. However, we attach it to it, or we make it part of the record, just so we have something to know where it's at. And I assume you're doing all that work, so those dumpsters are gonna be back inside that enclosure again, right?
No, we're tearing the closure down and building a new
Yeah,
one.
I saw that, but this is gonna be straight in where the trash
They're gonna come
supplier can
straight
pull
back.
straight in to get it.
Yes.
Okay, good. And then the fencing you're proposing will match what the old fencing was?
No, the
Fencing
fencing.
for the dumpster enclosure,
Oh, yes, it'll be similar to that.
okay,
It'll be wood slatting.
which would match the old one. We should just make a mention of that,
Mm-hmm.
that'll match the existing, what was approved for that dumpster
Okay.
enclosure. Make sense?
Do you want me to write that down?
Sure.
That's all I had. I wasn't here last time I looked at it. I don't think there's much traffic in that back alley at all. I don't think it's a big issue. I assume you're going to escort the kids back there.
Yes, of
or,
course.
I just don't remember
The
ever
only
seeing much
traffic
going.
is that nobody uses it.
Well, if they want to load supplies or something in one of those suites, they could use
Most
it.
of them don't, because most
Yeah.
of them are either offices or they that don't really get, but, and I said last time, the post office truck comes twice a day at 6 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon, and it just backs off the street to the post office.
Yeah.
Doesn't go any further than that.
The only thing you'll have to be a little careful of, and I think this shows up kind of, is you're coming down this way. If you look at where the fire trucks will come through, it's not exactly in this proportion. It sticks out a little more. I just watch it when you put that in, that they can make that turn back there.
Gotcha.
Because it'll be,
They've been there once.
yeah, but you're coming out a minimum of 5 foot from the end of that.
I know, I don't
So-
think it's gonna change it too much.
Yeah, I just be careful there where you come out from this, just to make sure there's room to make a swing back in there.
Okay.
And that stuff, and it's not a big deal, but I'm sure Chief Sullivan will want to look at that when you're done. Make sure you can get through there. And the last thing I saw when I was there, I see there's a private hydrant there, right between the two buildings.
Correct,
You
right
ever-
next to the first
Yeah,
building.
yeah. Do you ever service that? Because it
Well-
looked, it's private. If it's private, it looked like it hadn't been serviced in a long time.
Well, I'm not sure what's involved with servicing. We do have Ahern come, and they service the fire system, and, because
Do
we
they?
have sprinklers in the first building.
What you should
And
probably
they drain everything.
What you should probably do is mention it to Ahern. What they'll also do is they service the hydrant. It doesn't look like it's been touched for a long, long time, and that's your protection for your buildings. What they'll do is they'll flush it, and they'll grease all the caps and the nut on it and everything, and usually when they service it, they touch it up.
I'll call them more.
And I don't know that you need to take them out for a special trip, but it looked to me like a private hydrant that hasn't been serviced for quite some time. And you want to make sure if there ever
So you
is,
assume it was put in when they built the building?
I'd be almost sure of that. Yeah, and I think it was required. And if it's a private hydrant, then you have to service them versus the city.
I think one reason it might be there is they didn't sprinkle the second building. They didn't
I
have to.
have no doubt it was required. I have no doubt they didn't put it in for the heck of it.
But if you ever had to sprinkle that building,
Uh-huh.
you wouldn't have to go to the street. You could go right to that fire hydrant.
Sure.
That's why I think maybe that's why they put it in originally.
Maybe. But you'd want, and it's not a big deal. They flush it and they
Yeah.
grease all the flanges, they grease the top, they just make sure, and they make sure it drains down so it doesn't freeze. Let's make sure if it's ever needed, it's,
Sounds like you could.
I think if Ahern's already coming out, that'd be, I'm sure they could
Okay.
handle it for you.
Any other comments?
I had a question about the fill you're using. You said you're using 8 inches on the diagram. Is that going to be? I'm just wondering how that's going to be retained inside that fence if it's going to be 8 inches of cedar mulch on top of sand. Is that still the plan?
Yes.
So, yes.
So, and then you had, I think your quantities are off in the letter you sent
It
as
should have
well.
been like 5 cubic square feet of sand, I want to say, and then 2 cubic square feet of mulch were the numbers that I was given from Bill.
Okay, it should be, I think that's quite low. It's very low, in fact. If you're trying to get 8 inches of cedar mulch in there, that's more than 2 yards. So,
The sand was supposed to be 4 inches. I don't know
guess
that
the-
the mulch was supposed to be 8 inches on top of that.
okay, I just don't know how that's going to be retained because we're over, I don't know how high the fence, the bottom rung of the fence is, but my concern is that it's going to start spilling over the side of the fence.
We are putting, so we're talking about how we were gonna secure the bottom to keep it from running out. That's the first thing you were talking about.
Yeah, the
the
6x6
depth
timbers.
of the-
But if a 6 inch, and if we need an 8 inch one, it's not a big deal. Because
Okay.
there isn't a lot of it. And if we have to put up a 12 inch, it's not just.
Or what would
Okay.
you recommend, I guess, to make sure that
Well, I think you're looking at more like 30 yards of mulch to get 8
I
inches.
think 30 yards?
I wonder if that 8 inches is everything total thickness.
No, I don't think so.
And that it should be 8 inches, frankly, with putting a playground on a hard surface. It's generally not recommended with using a loose fill like that. So I would definitely have the sand and then the mulch as well.
Right, we were planning on using
Yeah,
both.
which I think is you should do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that was planned to do that.
So 8 inches of mulch. Okay.
Minimum, and that'll settle too at 8 inches. So.
Yes. I have one on the
That's
west
that's
side. maybe.
my recommendation. I don't know what the standards are for a private daycare, but just so the kiddos are safe.
Absolutely.
That was my only comment.
Thank you.
Yep, sounds
Any
good.
other
Thank
comments?
you.
No, it looks good.
Is there a motion? Mr. Humbert?
Move approval with condition 1 through 3 as recommended by staff. Condition 4, when they're talking about the trash enclosure fencing, that matches what had been originally approved there. Condition 5, sand and mulch base and play area must be adequately contained, prevent loose material from washing out with timbers pinned to the parking lot. 6 and 7 is recommended, and 8 that the copy of the plan of where everything was that was submitted tonight is part of this approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Mr. Humbert?
I didn't say whether it's a 6-inch timber, 8-inch timber, figure out what you're putting in for sand and mulch and,
Correct.
hold it back accordingly.
Okay,
That's what it-
sounds good.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Since we already have 25,000 into it, we're.
Yeah.
Thank you for approving it.
Thank you. Moving on to 5C, which is public hearing on request by Jen Tong Wu and Jamie Zong, business owners, and Gary Achenbach, property owner, for approval of a zoning permit for a new restaurant. Yang's Asian Kitchen at 6001 Monona Drive. Good evening. Thanks. How are you? Thank you. Good.
Zoom in here. Need to.
So my name is Jamie and this is JT. We are here back for approval for a zoning permit at 6001 Monona Drive. So just an update from last meeting. We have contacted about 2 to 3 commercial HVAC companies around the Madison area and to have them take a look at of our hood system proposal. And according to one of the companies who are, they're located from Sun Prairie, service specialists, there's a high chance that we might go with the company for the hood system installation. They did say that the HVAC equipment will be routed right through the roof. In the diagram, I know it's like a little hard on the aerial view, but the yellow boxes, so it will be more towards the southeast corner of the building, so that's not so close to the back of the residential in the back. It will be more towards the retail buildings right south of it. There we go. There'll be one air makeup system and then the 2 exhaust fans.
Yeah, they will be located about 10 feet away from the residential area and around 3 feet away from the exterior building. And that's all we have for update. And it's gonna be 2 exhaust system, exhaust fan, because
it will be a 19-foot hood system, so they kind of split it in half.
Okay, thank you. Close, if you could stay there, so in case there's any questions, I'm going to close the public hearing section, move on to 5D, consideration of action on the request. So,
This was also reviewed on July 13th in a pre-hearing conference, and approval is recommended with 3 conditions: 1 for general building permits, 2 with fire code requirements, including separate suppression system for the new hood, and 3 regarding future signage.
thank you. Commission members, questions, comments? Mr. Ember?
I wasn't here at the last meeting. Did you talk about any landscaping or pots or flowers or anything up by the building? I know there's a lot out by Monona Drive, but there's nothing from the asphalt to the building. Did you have any plans to do anything just to soften it up a little bit?
We have mentioned it to the property owner, Gary, but he has not gotten back to us about if he wanted to add any more landscaping to it yet. So, I mean,
I was thinking even if there's something up against the building, a few pots and flowers or something, it's all full.
Yeah, well, we will have to talk to him about it. But if he we're paying camp for him to maintain the
current area right now.
And the interior area is our priority. And I believe that if we can talk to him to see if he can enhance the building more, I think it's just better for us.
It is better for you. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel.
Comments?
It's already the nicest exterior in that stretch right there, so
Okay.
I'll never object to additional landscaping, but I don't see that it's a concern regarding this approval tonight.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
Move approval with staff's recommendations 1, 2, and 3.
Second.
Further discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it in our realm to state about the separate suppression system? I mean, it seems if they are complying with Monona Fire Code regulations, I don't know that that's something that we have expertise in to be able to put in there. I don't know that it's bad, but I'm just thinking, you know, I couldn't tell you if that's correct or incorrect.
I think the purpose of the applicants bringing this to our attention is that we wanted it to be a roof-mounted system rather than something that was side-vented that might disturb the neighbors, which was a concern that we would address. And, you know...
You're talking about condition 2 with the separate suppression system for the kitchen hood. Is that required by the fire chief?
Yes.
So typically we'll get department recommendations. If they have a strong recommendation, then we'll include that department recommendation in our conditions of approval.
I haven't seen it before. It doesn't bother me. I just didn't know if that's something that we should...
I think that when you build the hood system, it's under it, right? It's under it, and I believe that when we do it, it's usually built with it. So I don't think that would be a problem. I mean, we did it on Cheapan, and when you build the hood, they usually you call someone in, or they'll include it in there, and you have to build it.
Sure.
So it's for fire safety. So
Okay.
I think that.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you so much for your
Thank you.
approval.
When do you anticipate being open for business?
This is beginning, middle of August already, so
Yeah.
August.
So we're licensed and everything, and then training. I think at least 2 to 2.5 months, because
2.5 months, probably mid-October.
Okay.
Looking around there.
because you had to get to the city to get all the state.
We were unaware about having to come back to get a zoning permit approval, which took a little longer than we initially thought, so.
Sure, no
Our
problem.
schedule has been pushed.
Well, you're
Can we
successful.
invite you guys to come in for a change?
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
We'll be
Thank you.
there.
We'll be there.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, good luck. There's no new business, correct, Sonia?
Correct.
Item 7, reports of staff and commission members. 7A, staff report regarding status of development project proposals and meeting dates.
Yep. I don't have any applications for the next meeting, which would be August 24th. So it looks like another one can be canceled. Then the next meeting after that would be September 14th. Pending items still out there are Broadway Square and Summit Credit Union, which we knew was going to be delayed a little bit before they came back. And comprehensive plan, we need to get back together to talk once more about the future land use map, and then bring that to the commission for review, and then finish the implementation element of the plan. And that's all that remains for that.
Wonderful, thank you.
So we'll have it almost done, but not quite by the time Pat leaves.
Not quite done yet, you know. It's due tomorrow
I
and
think we can
still
just send it,
11:30.
we can send it with him to finish.
Yeah.
And we can send it in for comments, right?
Plan,
I'm there to help.
Plan Commission request for information?
Just, you said Broadway Square's still out there. I mean, have they communicated with you since they were in here last?
We sat down and went through the comments from the last Plan Commission meeting, and at that meeting, their plan was to still address all of those comments. Initially, they said that they wanted to come to Plan Commission in August, but I haven't heard from them since that meeting.
Okay. Any other, Mr. Omberg?
A couple, when I was doing site tours this afternoon, a couple just observations driving down Monona Drive. One of them, some of our signs look fabulous, and some of them seem to be getting away from us with some weeds and stuff. So I'm not sure if they know which are weeds and which aren't. And some of them are starting to get blocked. I know it's like the one down by American Inn and a couple other ones. So it's just something to keep in mind. I had a question. I know they replaced a lot of the dead trees. What do we do for the ones who trims them or takes care of the ones that we have that are doing well?
Johnson Tree Care. We have an arborist
Okay.
that takes
Right.
care of those.
'Cause I s-
Most of the pruning would take place in the
fall.
late fall.
Yeah, because I just noticed a lot of them are pretty low, and some of them are doing really well. Excuse me. So it's time they could start being pulled up so nobody's hanging on them. And the last one I just want to use for learning for us. I noticed at the retail building in front of American Inn. Well, I don't know what we call that, Qdoba and Mr. Bruce. All those trees we worked so hard to make sure they got saved, and they didn't go through them where they were going to tunnel to get the storm through. They dug right through, and then the utility company came in another area. If you look at some of these trees, they've been almost taken on all three sides. So not only did they drive on the root zones, they just tore right through them all. So I know in approvals we're always like, well, yeah, we won't make them put this fence in and monitor the fence and stuff, but it sure seems like when we don't, they get destroyed. And those are some nice old oaks, and my guess is in 5 to 10 years we're going to see some significant damage on them now. So it was just an observation. There's not much we can do about it now, but I think going forward it's something we should think about if we do think it's important enough to save some landmark trees, to actually put some teeth in it to save them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that building inspection's responsibility? I mean, that's a great point, and I'm always wondering that something get approved and then it goes up and things seem to be very different.
Yes.
I mean, who does track that? Whose responsibility is that?
But it's the building inspector's responsibility to make sure that the construction plan, which includes that area that Mr. Homburg just mentioned, is followed. In this case, I don't know what sort of detail was provided in those plans, but I also did notice the same thing, and mentioned it to Sonia too, about the trees and the proximity to the cutting and stuff. So.
And for larger projects, we've actually retained services for somebody.
Yeah, as a consultant to observe the construction, and that's on our projects, the city projects.
Right.
Of course.
Or projects that we've funded.
If there's TIF money that sort of thing, we hire a consultant to make sure it's adhered to.
Of course, once the damage is done, it's too late. So when I say learn it, maybe we have to just say, hey, this is the area you're going to fence it off and maintain that fence during the construction. That's a lot easier when one of us drives by, or Marty, or whomever, to see that, hey, they can't disturb that. Otherwise, utility company, for example, has no idea what's been approved, and it's up to them to get gas or electric in there. They just, I can go right through here, and it happens. So sometimes it's not anybody's fault. On the case that storm sewer, somebody didn't do what's on the plan, because our plan talked about boring it or tunneling it to get it past those trees, and they open cut it. The day they open cut it, what are you going to do? It's done.
Yeah. Any other comments?
If I could answer Mr. Homburg's first question, and then I have a comment, but on the Monona Drive stone wall signs, the street signs that are up, we did hire an individual this summer that has been working on the medians, the terraces that aren't being maintained, we're taking care of and billing the property owner. And then the walls, that's sort of the last on their list, but we are getting to those. And the American wall, we're going to finish the weeding and the landscaping component now that that retail building has gone up. So it should be, as you see improvements done there, we'll have that wall done too.
I got to say, I see huge improvements. I complained for a year or two about that rain garden we have in the middle there. It's great. They've got it fixed up. There's some, I think, black-eyed Susan. What are those?
Bebo.
What's that purple
Bernardo.
one? Is that like a coneflower
Aster.
or whatever it is? It looks great.
There's a few cigarette butts in there, but we try
well,
to take care of it.
But a lot of stuff looks great. I just happened to notice when I was driving around today the signs, but I didn't know that you were fixing everything up, and that was your last
Yeah.
one. So I figured I'd talk about it tonight.
Yeah, we're trying to stay up with it. There's always something to maintain, and that puts those guys behind. But I also wanted to thank the Plan Commission for all the work you do. If you haven't heard, I'm leaving for Fitchburg September 1, and it's been a good experience here. You guys do a great job, and keep it up. I will be a resident, so I can sit out there and complain now.
Great.
Oh, no.
I think I'm putting that on my personal to-do list, as a matter of fact.
You go right ahead, Mr. Marsh.
But thanks again for everything.
Yes.
Citizen Marsh.
Keep in mind, we know a lot of Fitchburg residents that could complain.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Well, Pat, I was going to mention, I'm glad you brought that, but a thank you for your 9 years? 9 years of
8 years.
8 years of service, and been a pleasure working with you. Should be very proud of all the things that have been accomplished in those 8 years. So best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. With that, we move to 8, adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's a good point, Griff. I never thought of that.
Never burn your bridges.
Right.